very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1 live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news, I'm Jodabdin.
And I'm Shalini Ratnavira. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
For sports items, B2B.lk.
Red alert issued for severe weather. No cyclone yet, but expect intense rainfall.
අපිට ලොකු සුළි කුණාටුවක් බවට පරිවර්තනය වෙන ලකුණු පහළ වෙලා නැහැ. සම්භාවිතාව අඩුයි. හැබැයි ගැඹුරු පීඩන අවපාතයක් ලෙස මේක ලංකාවට ඇතුළු වුණොත්, ඒ කියන්නේ හෙට දිනේ වෙනකොට අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ වර්ෂාපතනයේ සාපේක්ෂ වැඩිවීමක් තියෙනවා.
17 years since Lasantha Vikramatunga's murder.
අපි මේ ඝාතකයන් අත්අඩංගුවට මේ ඝාතකයන් හොයාගෙන ඒ වගේම යුක්තියට කිරීම වෙනුවෙන් අප සියලු දේම කරන
Prime Minister Harini meets Mahanayaka Theras over education reform crisis. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves hit record $6.8 billion. United States withdraws from 66 international organizations.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
For garden tools, B2B.lk.
And on to those stories in detail. In your top story this evening, the Department of Meteorology has issued a red alert warning that a deep depression over the Bay of Bengal is likely to make landfall along Sri Lanka's eastern coastline between Hambantota and Batticaloa tomorrow evening.
According to the red alert issued by the Department of Meteorology at 3:30 p.m. today, the deep depression was located approximately 250 kilometers off Portugal. The Department of Meteorology states that it is highly likely to make landfall along Sri Lanka's coastline between Hambantota and Batticaloa tomorrow between 5:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m.
මේ පද්ධතිය දැනට තියෙන විශ්ලේෂණ වල අපිට ලොකු සුළි කුණාටුවක් බවට පරිවර්තනය.
Current analysis shows no signs of this system developing into a severe cyclone. The probability is low. However, if it enters Sri Lanka as a deep depression, tomorrow we will definitely see a relative increase in rainfall. This increase will mainly affect the eastern, over, central, northern and north central provinces, where rainfall could exceed 150 millimeters and in some places even reach 200 millimeters. Other provinces may experience rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters tomorrow. Wind speeds are also likely to increase. Once the system moves inland, moisture will reduce due to rainfall, weakening the system gradually. By around the 10th, rainfall will relatively decrease, though some areas may still receive over 100 millimeters. Generally, after the 11th, the system will weaken further, minimizing its impact on Sri Lanka.
සාමාන්‍ය 11 වෙනිදාන් පස්සේ මේ පද්ධතිය දුර්වල වෙලා අපේ ලංකාවට තියෙන බලපෑම අවම කිරීමට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා.
The Department of Meteorology has also requested the public to avoid venturing into the sea.
ගැඹුරු මුහුදු තීරයත් ආසන්න මුහුදු තීරයේත්
Wind speeds over deep and shallow seas could rise significantly to 70 to 80 kilometers per hour, and wave heights around the island may surge to 2 to 3 meters. Therefore, we strongly advise against engaging in fishing and naval activities.
ඉල්ලීමත් අපි ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
What is the situation regarding irrigation systems?
විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ වෙන විට ප්‍රධාන ජලාශය 73න්
Currently, 25 out of 73 major reservoirs are spilling, and 24 medium-sized reservoirs have opened spill gates to reduce water levels. Special attention should be paid to reservoirs that could be affected in the coming days. Districts requiring vigilance include Ampara, Batticaloa, Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Trincomalee, Vavuniya and Northern Province. Heavily localized rainfall could lead to flooding. Therefore, residents in these districts are kindly requested to remain alert.
තව වැඩි අවධානයෙන් ඉන්න කියන එක කාරුණිකව ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
What is the status of Mahaveli reservoirs?
මහවැලි අධිකාරියට සම්බන්ධ ජලාශ ගත්තොත් මේ වෙනකොට
Mahaveli reservoirs currently hold about 95% capacity, except Kotmale, which is at 59%. Others range between 90 to 95%, with some reaching 100%. At present, 4 to 6 reservoirs are spilling, including Lokgal Oya and Hapola in Mahyanganaya, as well as Madra Oya, Kaluganga, Kandalama and Kalabava. However, these spillings are minor and pose no threat to the public. Additionally, sluice gates have been opened at Moragahakanda and Ulhitia to reduce water levels. If the forecasted rainfall occurs, we plan to manage reservoir capacity by releasing water systematically to prevent flooding.
Landslide warnings have been issued for 4 districts.
Red evacuation alerts have been issued for Udadumbara and Nildanhinda and Walapane. Stage 2 alerts have been issued for Kandaketiya, Vilgamua and parts of Nurelia, including Mathurata and Hanguranketa. Stage 1 alerts have been issued for Migahakula, Lunugala, Passara, Haliyala, Doluwa, Ambanganga Korale and Bibila.
What are the disaster preparedness measures?
හදිසි ආපදා තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වූ ආපදා කළමනාකරණ මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ 117 දුරකථන
The emergency hotline 117 is ready to receive urgent calls. District level disaster units have been alerted and all stakeholders have been informed down to Grama Niladhara divisions. The Tri-Forces, Army, Navy and Air Force are on standby to assist the public during emergencies. The Army has deployed 80 search and rescue teams along with dinghies, WMZ vehicles, BTRs, Unibuffle and Unicorn vehicles for flood conditions. The Navy has deployed 16 special teams and the Air Force has 66 rescue teams ready for rapid response.
කණ්ඩායම් 16ක් යොදවලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ගුවන් හමුදාව මුදවා ගැනීම කණ්ඩායම් 66ක් සූදානම් කරලා තියෙනවා.
Newsfirst with the people.
The place I stand today may look ordinary to you, but 17 years ago on a day like this, it was anything but ordinary. This ground bears the weight of one of the darkest chapters in Sri Lankan history. This is where the blood was spilled of a courageous journalist, a man who stood up for truth, for media freedom, and your right to information. That man was Lasantha Wickrematunge.
On the 6th of January 2009, a group of armed men stormed the Sirasa Media Network's studio complex in Depanama, detonating bombs and setting fire to the premises. Just 2 days later, on the 8th of January, senior journalist Lasantha Wickrematunge was brutally assassinated in broad daylight. At the time, Lasantha was the editor-in-chief of the Sunday Leader, a fearless voice who dedicated his life to safeguarding the public's right to information. Through his pen, Lasantha exposed truths that many wanted buried. Massive corruption scandals that would have otherwise remained hidden beneath the sands of time. Weeks before his murder, Lasantha revealed details of a major defense procurement deal involving the purchase of 4 MiG-27 fighter jets and the overhaul of 3 others, along with the MiG-23 aircraft in 2006. While this transaction could have been executed transparently as a government-to-government deal with Ukraine, Lasantha exposed how it was carried out through corrupt channels.
ලසන්තව ඝාතනය කරන ආසන්නම හා අපි විශ්වාස කරන ප්‍රධානම සිද්ධිය වන්නේ
The closest and most significant event linked to Lasantha's assassination was the MiG aircraft deal signed in July 2006 between the Sri Lanka Air Force and Ukraine's Ukrenmash. Sri Lanka paid nearly $15 million not directly to Ukraine but to a third-party entity called Bellimissa Holdings with address registered in the US and London. Lasantha revealed through the Sunday Leader that Bellimissa Holdings was a phantom company. Its listed fax number and address belonged to a freight forwarding firm. He published evidence showing that $2.4 million per aircraft was agreed to be paid to this fake entity. He also exposed that the defense meeting approving this deal in February 2006 was chaired by Gotabaya Rajapaksa, then Secretary of Defense, and linked to Udayanga Weeratunga, a relative of the Rajapaksa family, who was later appointed ambassador to Russia and Ukraine by President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Gotabaya Rajapaksa filed a ₹1 billion defamation suit against him in the Mount Lavinia District Court. When legal intimidation failed to silence him, Lasantha was gunned down on a public road within weeks of the lawsuit. On the 9th August 2010, Colombo Magistrate Lanka Jayaratna was informed that documents related to the MiG deal had mysteriously disappeared, a shocking development that deepened suspicions of a cover-up.
කරුණු දක්වලා කියනවා මිග් යානා ගනුදෙනුවට අදාළ ලිය කියවිලි අතුරුදහන් වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒක හරිම පුදුම කාරණයක්.
Investigations into Lasantha's murder were launched, but most efforts focused on burying the truth rather than uncovering it. The case shifted between the CID, TID and back to the CID, with repeated attempts to suppress evidence and derail inquiries. Lasantha became a symbol of political change, his name invoked during regime shifts. Yet, justice remained elusive. After 2019, officers who pursued the case were transferred, some even imprisoned. Key evidence vanished. Witnesses died. A bicycle believed to have been used by the killers was found in Attidia. But what happened to its owner and his associate? CID traced several mobile numbers linked to suspects, registered under the name J. Sudasan, who later revealed his ID had been stolen to obtain SIM cards. J. Sudasan is no longer alive. In October 2010, a man claiming responsibility for Lasantha's murder sent a letter, then died under mysterious circumstances. There were more incidents. The country knows them. Lasantha's notebook contained 2 suspicious license plate numbers of motorcycles tailing him. What became of those leads? Instead of finding the killers, the system seemed intent on shielding them. Today, a team of skilled officers is once again investigating the case, a necessary step to uphold the people's right to know. But one question remains. Who wanted Lasantha Vikramatunga dead on the 8th of January 2009? Who had the power to make it happen? And how far is justice still from our reach? A solemn memorial was held at the Barallas Cemetery in memory of senior journalist Lasantha Vikramatunga, who was brutally assassinated 17 years ago. The event took place with the participation of his brother Lal Vikramatunga, family members and a gathering of journalists and well-wishers who came to honour his legacy.
We have been doing this every year since 2009. Sadly, there is no proper direction yet, not only in Lasantha's murder, but in all the other murders of journalists that took place within a period of 6 years, which numbers to 44. And they were not only from Colombo, but many were from the north. It is sad that none of these murders have reached a proper direction and charges made in court. I hope and I pray that justice will prevail in the coming year, and the investigations that commenced after this government came into service of the people will take a rightful turn.
From what I hear, the investigation is ongoing. I have been informed that a new set of evidence has been obtained. However, when we talk about Lasantha's murder, we know who did it. We know, but presenting evidence is not something we can do. That responsibility lies with those who have taken it on, and we still hope they will deliver. Whatever is said, politics is at the heart of this. These journalists were killed because they united to present awareness to the public. So it's impossible to say politics has no role. Ultimately, it is in the hands of those in authority to bring these cases forward.
A debate on the assassination of journalist Lasantha Vikramatunga took place in Parliament.
This Parliament has previously discussed major national issues such as the Easter Sunday attacks, Express Pearl disaster and matters related to pharmaceuticals, many of which are also before court. So today, as we commemorate 17 years since the assassination of Lasantha Vikramatunga, I am saddened to see the double standard of the way this matter is being taken forward, even after more than a decade. As a government, we are making the maximum effort to conduct investigations regarding the assassinations of these journalists and the attacks on media institutions. For 17 years, those assassins and the people who helped those assassins, many former ministers of former governments, opposition leaders, ministers passed by. Even after 17 years, this problem still exists. I do not know whether any of you have expressed ideas based on any standing orders. However, as a government, whatever the standing orders may say, we are doing everything to take assassins into custody, to find these assassins and also ensure justice is served. But those assassins ruled this country once. Those assassins held ministerial posts in those governments. Some governments were formed with promises of catching these assassins. However, we will definitely catch the assassins. We did disclose who carried out the assassins. Honorable Speaker, please remember that governments which came into power promising to deliver justice for the assassination of Lasantha Wickrematunge have failed. Honorable Speaker, if they fail to fulfill that promise and repeatedly fail, then that is a severe setback for democracy in this country, where the executive presidency holds 2/3 of the power. There is no obstacle preventing the government from implementing proper measures to ensure justice. If this government also fails to deliver justice for Lasantha, then we are sure that justice for him will never be served. Recalling this painful reality, I pray that Lasantha Wickrematunge, who sacrificed his life for justice, democracy and media freedom, rests in peace.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya informed the Mahanayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters of the Siam sect that the government considered the issue surrounding the grade 6 English module extremely serious and will take immediate steps to correct it before the books reach students.
Under the new education reforms, concerns have emerged regarding the content of an English module prepared for grade 6. As the subject minister, the Prime Minister, along with the Secretary to the Ministry of Education, briefed the Mahanayaka Theras on the matter during a visit to Kandy this morning. During the meeting with Most Venerable Tibbatuawe Sri Sumangala Thera, the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter, the Prime Minister presented all modules prepared under the reform process.
We received information about a problematic website mentioned in the English module. Upon checking, we confirmed it was indeed inappropriate. Immediately, we sealed the books. They were never distributed. We removed the books and appointed an inquiry committee to find out how this content was included. The National Institute of Education is responsible for writing these books, and they have a process with multiple checks. We had specifically instructed that internet links should not be included for this age group. This should have been checked at several stages. Why it wasn't detected is now under investigation. The committee, comprising 3 additional secretaries, has submitted its report confirming that this was added later as a new lesson. It was a mistake. Now we need to find out if there is more to this. The Secretary has already lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department. There are 106 books for 2 years of grade 6. We have brought all of them to the Ministry for review. We have already found some errors in other books too. About 3,000 teachers had these books for training, but none raised concerns. The link was not clearly mentioned. Only a title was included. That's why it wasn't flagged. This is a serious error, and we will take every possible step to correct it.
Later, the Prime Minister and officials visited Askiri Mahavihara and met Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera, the Mahanayaka of the Askiri chapter.
අග්‍රමැතිතුමීනි දැන් ඔය එක තියෙන වෙබ්සයිට් රජයේ වගකීම් අමාත්‍යාංශකෙන් වගකීම් බාර ගන්නේවත් නෙවෙයිනේ බොහෝ විට පෞද්ගලික ඒවා විදේශ රටවල් වල ඒවා. ඒකට ඒවා අපි ඉන්ට්‍රොඩියුස් කරනකොට එතරම් චුට්ටි වගකීමක් අපි ගන්න වෙනවා. මොකද මේවා අභ්‍යන්තරේ මොන දේවල් ඒකට අප්ඩේට් වෙයිද දන්නෙත් නෑනේ ඉදිරියට නේද?
ඔව් හරියටම හරියනවා. අපි ගිය අවුරුද්දේත් අපි කියලා තිබ්බේ ඊතක්ෂලාවෙන් ඒ කියන්නේ අමාත්‍යාංශයේ යන්නේ වෙබ් ලින්ක් දාන්න එපා කියලා.
ඇත්තටම නව අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කාලීන වශයෙන් අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි. ඉතින් ඇත්තටම මේ ප්‍රශ්නගත ගැටලුව කිසියම් තැනකින් දැන හෝ නොදැන මම හිතන්නේ මේක මේ පොතට ඇතුළු නොවිය යුතු දෙයක්. ඒ නිසා ඇත්තටම විධිමත් පරීක්ෂණයක් කරලා ඒ සම්බන්ධ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් ගැනීම සහ ඉදිරියේ එවන්නක් නොවෙන්න වගබලා ගැනීම තමයි මේ වෙලාවේ ඇත්තටම කළ යුතු තියෙන්නේ.
අපිට කිසිසේත්ම මේක වහන්න මේක මේ උනේ නෑ මේක එච්චර ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙමෙයි කියලා කියන්නේ නෑ. මුල් අවස්ථාවේම අපි මේක කිසිසේත්ම පිළිගන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. මේක වහාම නිවැරදි වෙන්න ඕනේ. මේක පොල් ළමයින්ට යන්න බෑ.
මේ කාරණේදී පමණක් නෙවෙයි වෙනත් වගකීම් යුතු රාජ්‍ය ලේඛන සම්බන්ධ වුණත් නේ. ගොඩක් හිතන්න වෙනවා. නේද? පිට උණෙන් පස්සේ ඉතින් ආයේ ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක්.
විමර්ශනය යනවා. විමර්ශනයේ එන නිර්දේශ අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. දඬුවම් ලැබිය යුතු අය වගකීම දැරිය යුතු අය ඒ විමර්ශනයට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ස්වාධීනව ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න ඉඩ දෙනවා හම්බුනේ.
මේක කරේ කවුද මේක ඇත්තටම ලිව්වේ කවුද කියන එක හඳුනා ගැනීමට අපිට පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒක
We can identify who wrote this because everything is documented. That's not the issue. The real question is why it was written and whether it was an innocent mistake or something deliberate. If deliberate, was there external influence? We cannot determine that through an internal inquiry alone. 3 internal investigations are underway and disciplinary action will follow. But if this was intentional, it raises serious concerns beyond our scope.
ඒතර මොකක්ද පෙළඹවීම? ඒක අපිට හොයන්න බෑ මේ අභ්‍යන්තර පරීක්ෂණයකින්.
For garden tools, b2b.lk.
Welcome back to the news. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka has outlined its policy priorities for 2026 and beyond, signalling a renewed focus on stability and growth amid global and domestic challenges. Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe reaffirmed the bank's commitment to its inflation target of 5%, projecting a gradual rise in inflation through 2026, reaching the target by the second half of this year. Newsfirst Budmin Amaradivakara has more.
How will the economy look like in the year 2026? As the Central Bank Governor of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, the economy is expected to grow by 4 to 5% by this year, and also the inflation is expected to reach its target by the second half of this year. These views were expressed by the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, in today's Central Bank here in Colombo. So this is what he had to say.
The agreement reached with the government in 2023 on the inflation target of 5%, along with the provisions of the Central Bank Act, ensures that Central Bank remains accountable for achieving the inflation target. The deflationary conditions and the subsequent period of low inflation resulted in inflation remaining below the target by more than the agreed margin for the second quarter of 2024. Accordingly, the Central Bank continued to submit reports on the deviation of headline inflation from the inflation target to the Parliament through the Minister of Finance. By making these reports available to the public, the Central Bank has further strengthened its transparency and accountability to both the Parliament and the general public, thereby reinforcing credibility of and anchoring inflation expectations. According to the predictions prior to the cyclone Ditra, inflation is expected to continue to gradually rise in 2026, reaching the target of our 5% by the second half of the year. There are both upside and downside risks to inflation rising from the devastation caused by the cyclone. The possible impact of cyclone Ditra and possible policy responses will be incorporated in upcoming forecasts in our monetary policy review cycles.
Sri Lanka has achieved a significant milestone in its economic recovery, with gross official reserves surpassing $6.8 billion by the end of 2025, marking the highest level record since the crisis.
Despite facing challenging conditions, such as meeting obligations for servicing external debt, especially after the restructuring of the government, without corresponding inflows and increased demand for vehicle imports, gross official reserves, which hovered around $6 to 6.3 billion during the most part of the year, surpassed $6.8 billion by end 2025. So this represents the highest level of reserves recorded since the crisis and exceeds the IMF latest prediction for end 2025, which is gross reserve of 6.55 billion. So if you look at the IMF predictions for end 2025 to 6.55 billion, we have been able to achieve 6.8 billion, which is much higher than even without this with the delay of the disbursement of IMF if a tranche of 350 billion. Instead, we got RFI of 200 billion. The build-up of resources was largely supported by $2 billion in net foreign exchange. That's mainly coming from central bank purchases from the market of 2 billion last year on value date basis from the domestic foreign exchange market, along with some proceeds from multilateral agencies, especially from the ADB and the IMF. Substantial net foreign exchange purchases in 2025 followed net purchases made by central bank from the domestic foreign exchange market in the previous 2 years as well. It's a record purchase of foreign exchange 2023 and 2024, amounting to $1.7 billion and $2.8 billion respectively in those 2 years.
The central bank governor also commented on economic growth.
Continuing the growth momentum reported during the last 2 years, economy is expected to grow by around 4 to 5% in 2026, according to our estimate for this year. But there could be both downside risk and upside risk, depending on the phase of implementation of socially important structural reforms, as well as implementation of especially this year additional expenditure by the government on the rebuilding and reconstruction efforts. That could be growth positive. Any delays could be there could be downside risk as well. And made notable progress in building buffers across the fiscal, external and monetary and finance sectors of the economy. We believe that the economy possesses a greater capacity compared to that we had in the past, greater capacity to bounce back from this devastation much faster than in the past. So that's an important part of the building buffers for us to meet this kind of shocks.
The British High Commission in Colombo said that Sri Lanka's apparel industry now benefits tariff-free access to UK.
Sri Lanka's apparel industry has entered a new era of opportunity as liberalized trade rulers under the UK's Developing Countries Trading Scheme came into effect on the 1st January 2026, granting tariff-free access for garment exports to the UK. Under the reforms, manufacturers can now source up to 100% of materials globally while maintaining zero UK tariffs, a significant departure from previous restrictions that required 2 manufacturing processes to occur in Sri Lanka. This change is expected to dramatically boost Sri Lanka's garment exports, which already account for over 60% of the country's exports to the UK, valued at approximately $675 million. The new rules also introduce an Asia regional accumulation group of 18 countries, enabling Sri Lankan exporters to source inputs from regional partners while retaining preferential tariff benefits. This flexibility positions Sri Lanka to compete on a level playing field in global supply chains. India has reaffirmed its commitment to fast-track recovery and development projects in Sri Lanka following Cyclone Ditwa while deepening bilateral economic and trade relations. Speaking in Colombo, Indian High Commissioner Santosh Jha outlined a comprehensive assistance package and future investment plans.
During his visit, EM's discussions with the Sri Lankan leadership centered around how expeditiously the assistance across sectors could be implemented. A joint monitoring and coordination mechanism with representatives from across ministries has been put in place for that very purpose. Over the coming week, we are looking at inaugurating 2 bridges constructed under this package. We will also commence the restoration work on the Northern Railway line. The bridge construction is proposed to be covered under a grant of nearly $30 million. Our estimates suggest that this should suffice for restoration of all bridges impacted by Ditwa. The repair of the Northern Railway line will also be funded under a grant. Similarly, the agenda for the next couple of weeks includes installation of nearly 200 RO water purification plants in localities identified by the government of Sri Lanka. Another priority is to supply temporary shelter material for those who have lost their houses to Cyclone Ditwa. We are also working towards finalizing proposals to support through a grant of $50 million repair of partially and fully damaged houses.
Beyond disaster recovery, India is working closely with Sri Lanka to develop transparent and effective public-private partnership models.
We are also supporting the government of Sri Lanka in developing transparent and effective public-private partnership models. Tourism linkages have been strengthened further, with India accounting for over 20% of foreign tourist arrivals in 2025, surpassing the record levels of 2018. Approximately 25% of Sri Lanka's FDI, and maybe it could be much more than 25% if we account for investments that are clearly Indian investments, but we have come from a different country of origin. It could exceed 50% of the Sri Lanka's FDI in 2025. But if we go deeper into the data, we realize that often many of the Indian companies that are global channelize the investment through their many global subsidiaries. Here often that investment is shown from a third country in the official data. Once we take that into account, I am given to understand that approximately 40 to 50% of FDI inflows into Sri Lanka are from Indian companies. There is also the remarkable story of Colombo Dockyard moving from bankruptcy to revival, supported by the forthcoming investment from Mazagaon Dock Shipbuilders, which has already helped secure major global contracts. I'm confident that as we deepen our economic linkages and diversify our trade basket, India will continue to be Sri Lanka's leading partner in trade, tourism and investment.
Phase 2 of the LOLC Divisavya You, Me, Our Nation Social Welfare Initiative continued for the fourth consecutive day at 2 schools in the Kandy and Ratnapura districts. This phase of the program aims to renovate 200 schools damaged by Cyclone Ditwa.
The LOLC Divisavya You, Me, Our Nation program consists of 3 phases. Under phase 1, over a period of 10 days, essential dry rations and other necessities were distributed to families whose homes were completely destroyed by Cyclone Ditwa. Phase 2, which is currently underway, focuses on repairing 200 schools damaged by Cyclone Ditwa across 3 provinces and 6 districts over the coming days. Under this initiative, Kemananda Primary School in the Ambalipitia Divisional Secretariat area of Ratnapura District and Mavusa Primary School in the Kandy District were officially handed over to students today after completion of renovations. The Demataketiya Vidyalaya and Tundahena Vidyalaya in the Ratnapura District will be handed over tomorrow after they were rebuilt under the second phase of the LOLC Divisavya You, Me, Our Nation program. The LOLC Divisavya Social Welfare program is dedicated to serving the people of Sri Lanka.
The Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army, General Upendra Dwivedi, laid the foundation stone for the Indo-Lanka Sports Complex at the Army War College, a project funded by India during his official visit to the institution this morning. General Upendra Dwivedi, Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army, together with his spouse Sunitha Dwivedi, paid an official visit to the Army War College. During the event, he laid the foundation stone for the Indo-Lanka Sports Complex at the Army War College, a project funded by India. Following the foundation ceremony, the Chief of Army Staff unveiled the plaque and planted a sapling in the premises. He later witnessed a detailed briefing on the proposed gymnasium, which is envisaged to further enhance physical training and welfare facilities at the institution. In a gesture of goodwill and continued support, the Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army presented an ambulance van to the Army War College, strengthening India's commitment to capacity building and humanitarian support.
The annual festival of the St. Anthony's Shrine in Kachativu, located in the Sea of Sri Lanka, will be held on the upcoming 27th and 28th of February.
The preparatory meeting for the annual festival of the St. Anthony's Shrine in Kachativu was held in Jaffna today. The meeting, chaired by the Jaffna District Government Agent Marthalingam Pradeepan, discussed the arrangements for the Kachativu festival. Participants included the Vicar General of the Jaffna Diocese, Joseph Das Jebaratnam, Navy officers, departmental officials and officers from the Delft Divisional Secretariat.
The annual festival of the St. Anthony's Shrine in Kachativu will be held on the 27th and 28th of February. As usual, devotees from both Sri Lanka and India will gather as one family at the Kachativu Shrine to receive God's blessings during these 2 days. We expect approximately 8,000 people to gather at Kachativu. Accordingly, the Navy has already begun preparatory work, including cleaning the area around the St. Anthony's Shrine. A decision was made at today's meeting for everyone to work together to provide basic facilities for the devotees. Regarding transportation, a one-way fare of 1,200 rupees per passenger has been fixed for travel from Kurikattuvan. Meanwhile, the fare from Delft Neduntivu has been fixed at 1,000 rupees. Arrangements have also been made to halt boat and ship transportation from the Kurikattuvan jetty to Kachativu by 2 p.m. on the 27th.
Sirasa Lux Rure, which aired on the 31st December 2025, has set a historic milestone in Sri Lankan digital entertainment, becoming the most viewed single episode program across social media platforms.
Is that the latest fashion?
One night, one stage, one historic record.
Sirasa Lux Rure.
Dangakar hadakari obekam mulvalata vada
Maradanem parata kamulang vela.
Sirasa Lux Rure, aired on 31st of December 2025, captured nationwide attention and generated over 100 million total views across Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and TikTok. A total of 22 program-related content surpassed 1 million views each, with the highest viewed clip recording over 8 million views.
Step like jelly, don't move your hips. Eat that air like chips and dip. Step so warm and city skip. Come on, scream for me just like you got Tourette's.
This marks the first time in Sri Lanka that a single program has achieved such an unprecedented level of digital viewership, transforming one unforgettable night into millions of memories, redefining audience engagement and setting a new benchmark for the country's online entertainment.
Get ready for an exciting journey as the global sensation The Voice Teens comes your way. We bring more on this on tonight's Happy Headlines.
The internationally celebrated singing sensation, The Voice Teens, has arrived in Sri Lanka for Season 3.
Season 3 is here for the zest and the brand new Voice Teens back again.
The walk-in auditions kicked off today at the Gampa Public Library, giving young talents from all over the country a chance to showcase their exceptional singing abilities on an international stage. Season 3 is open to participants aged 13 to 18, inviting them to step into the spotlight and let their voices be heard. The next round of walk-in auditions will take place tomorrow at Rukmani Devi Hall in Nigambo from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
On to news overseas, US President Donald Trump has announced that he plans to withdraw the US from 66 United Nations and international organizations, including major forums for cooperation on climate change, peace and democracy. The Colombo Plan Council is also one among the 66 organizations that US will withdraw from. US President Donald Trump has signed a presidential memorandum directing the withdrawal of the United States from 66 international organizations that no longer serve American interests. According to a fact sheet published by the White House, the memorandum orders all executive departments and agencies to cease participating in and funding 35 non-United Nations organizations and 31 UN entities that operate contrary to US national interests, security, economic prosperity or sovereignty. Through the memorandum, President Trump has directed all departments to withdraw from the organizations. According to Section 2 of the memorandum, organizations from which the United States shall withdraw also include the Colombo Plan Council, an intergovernmental organization consisting of 28 member countries operating on the partnership concept of self-help and mutual help to enhance human capital development and South-South cooperation. Some of the other organizations include Global Counterterrorism Forum, Commission for Environmental Cooperation, Global Forum on Migration and Development, International Energy Forum, International Institute for Justice and the Rule of Law, Partnership for Atlantic Cooperation, Regional Cooperation Council, Venice Commission of the Council of Europe and more. The White House emphasized that these withdrawals will end American taxpayer funding and involvement in entities that advance globalist agendas over US priorities or that address important issues inefficiently or ineffectively, such that US taxpayer dollars are best allocated in other ways to support the relevant missions.
United States President Donald Trump has invited his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro to the White House just days after threatening him with military action over alleged drug trafficking.
Days after threatening Colombia with military action, US President Donald Trump yesterday said arrangements were being made for the country's President Gustavo Petro to visit the White House following a call between the two leaders. Trump and Petro said they discussed relations between the two countries in their first call since the US President on Sunday said that a US military operation focused on Colombia's government sounds good to him. Trump wrote on social media, quote, "It was a great honor to speak with the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, who called to explain the situation of drugs and other disagreements that we have had. I appreciated his call and tone and look forward to meeting him in the near future." End quote. Trump added that arrangements are underway for a meeting in Washington between himself and Petro, Colombia's first leftist president, but gave no specific date for the meeting. Petro told supporters gathered at a rally in Bogota meant to celebrate Colombia's sovereignty that they have spoken by phone for the first time since he became president, adding that he had requested a restart of dialogue between the two countries.
If we don't speak, there is war. Colombia's history has taught us that. And what happened is that we talked and re-established communication for the first time. Talked about Venezuela and drug trafficking. I gave him our numbers of what we are doing to fight drugs. I told him many of the politicians that talk to him from Colombia have links with drug trafficking.
Relations between Trump and Petro have been frosty since the Republican returned to the White House in January 2025. Trump has repeatedly accused the administration of Petro, without evidence, of enabling a steady flow of cocaine into the US, imposing sanctions on the Colombian leader in October. On Sunday, Trump referred to Petro as a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. The US in September had revoked Petro's visa after he joined a pro-Palestinian demonstration in New York following a meeting of the United Nations General Assembly and called on US soldiers to disobey the orders of Trump. Petro, who has been a vocal opponent of Israel's war in Gaza, had accused Trump of being complicit in genocide in Gaza and called for criminal proceedings over US missile attacks on suspected drug-running boats in Caribbean waters. The United States has seized 2 tankers linked to Venezuelan oil exports in back-to-back operations in the North Atlantic and the Caribbean. US forces boarded the Russian-flagged Marinera after a pursuit lasting almost 2 weeks as it travelled through the waters between Iceland and Scotland. The UK Royal Navy gave logistical support by air and sea. A second tanker, the MT Sophia, was accused by the US of conducting illicit activities and boarded in the Caribbean. The moves come as the US seeks to choke off most exports of Venezuelan crude oil, and just days after its special forces seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a lightning raid on his residence in Caracas. Moscow has denounced the seizure of the tanker sailing under its flag and demanded that the US treat Russians aboard properly and permits them to return to Russia quickly. The Transport Ministry said it had given the vessel temporary permission to use the Russian flag, adding that no state had the right to use force against vessels properly registered in other states' jurisdictions. Reports suggested that Russia dispatched a submarine to safeguard the vessel, but it appears that US forces were able to board the tanker without facing any resistance. The White House described the ship as a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel deemed stateless after flying a false flag and had a judicial order against it.
Bangladesh and Pakistan are to resume direct flights after more than a decade, Dhaka's national airline confirmed, as ties warm and regional power balances shift. Biman Bangladesh Airlines is scheduled to fly its first Dhaka-Karachi flight on the 29th January and will be operated twice weekly, the first regular flight since 2012. Bangladesh and Pakistan, geographically divided by more than 1,500 kilometers by India, were once one nation. They split after a bitter war in 1971. Travelers between Bangladesh and Pakistan must currently use connecting flights through Gulf hubs such as Dubai and Doha.
Action continued on the local and international cricket front today.
The Blues won the first match of the National Super League Women's T20 Cricket Tournament. The Graces lost to them. Batting first, the Graces were all out for 97 in the match played at the BRC grounds in Colombo. The Blues won the match in 17.3 overs, having only lost 5 wickets. Former Indian cricketer Vikram Rathore has been appointed as the batting coach of the Sri Lankan team targeting the T20 Cricket World Cup. According to a statement issued by Sri Lanka Cricket, he will serve in that post from the 18th of January to the 10th of March. Australia won the Ashes Test Series 4-1 today. They won the 5th match of the series by 5 wickets. Batting first in the match held in Sydney, Australia scored 567 runs in reply to the 384 runs scored by England. England, playing in their second innings, were all out for 342 runs. Chasing a target of 160 runs, Australia won the match after 5 wickets fell in 31.2 overs. Australian batsman Usman Khawaja bid farewell to international cricket after the match.
And that's a wrap of your news for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.